All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video, buy low, sell high to win your fantasy hockey playoffs. I've got 5 players I'm going to be talking about today. 2 guys that you're going to be selling high on, and then 3 guys to buy low on, and 1 guy is a super buy low, and if you're in maybe not as deep of a league as some of you are out there, you might be able to pick him up on the waiver wire, but definitely a guy that you should be adding at this point of the season. You know, a lot of moving parts right now in the NHL with the trade deadline approaching. So definitely these 5 guys you're going to want to have on your watch list. All right, so the first guy we're going to be talking about, sell high in my opinion, Dylan Larkin. Dylan Larkin's value right now is at its absolute peak in my opinion. He's the 16th best fantasy skater over the last 30 days. So he's been playing definitely overperforming in my opinion. But here's why I think it's a good time to trade Dylan Larkin. The Red Wings for the rest of the season have the toughest remaining schedule. The Eastern Conference this year has just been a gauntlet, but some of the teams they have to play, Boston twice, Carolina twice, the Leafs, Tampa twice, Rangers, and then the Stars as well. Another Western Conference team that's been playing really well. So all these teams coming together, those are some solid defensive teams. You're probably not going to get a ton of goals out of this Red Wings offense of those. So Larkin, despite being one of those top front runners of this offense, I think right now this whole fact with their schedule, definitely a good idea to look to trade Dylan Larkin. Some other reasons too, Lucas Raymond has been out for the better part of February. He'll probably be back in March, if not before March starts. But not only that, you know, Tyler Bertuzzi's back in the lineup playing a little bit more. Seider's starting to pick up his offensive production, his 9 points, his last 10 games played. And then Robbie Fabry's also back in this lineup too. So a few more mouths to feed here. Production could dwindle a little bit there for Larkin as well. On top of that, sure, his shooting volume is pretty solid. Dictates a lot of this Red Wings offense, kind of has to, as being one of the leaders on this team and the captain. He has 7 goals over his last 10 games played on a shooting percentage of 21. So he's scoring on 1/5 of his shots right now, and his season shooting percentage is 12. So I don't really think that's sustainable, especially because of who they have to go up against. So in terms of looking who you're going to trade Dylan Larkin for, I would look maybe to trade Kempe for Larkin if you can. He's also been super hot. Both of these guys, I would say, equally. Adrian Kempe maybe a little bit hotter in terms of the goal scoring department, but Larkin overall, they're very close over the last 30 days in terms of fantasy score. And then another player, maybe Sebastian Aho as well. You know, having Larkin as that star player on this Red Wings offense, you know, that's definitely something that you could push in a trade discussion, because Aho, there's obviously way more mouths to feed on that Carolina offense. You know, it could be a Andrei Svechnikov night, any night, Marty Necas. So Aho could be a guy that a little bit of a differentiator there. But Larkin, definitely a guy you should be selling high on right now. I don't think we're going to see the same production we've seen recently for the rest of the season. All right, so the first guy we're going to be buying low on is actually Mikael Backlund on the Calgary Flames. And Mikael Backlund on this third line of the Calgary Flames now, which is essentially their first line in my opinion, because their production has been absolutely through the roof. This line has been fucking rolling, and that line's Mikael Backlund, Andrew Mangiapane, and Blake Coleman. But Mikael Backlund has been the guy, you know, leading this charge for this line. Look at the last 30 days from a fantasy hockey perspective. He has more fantasy points than Braden Point, Bo Horvat, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Andrei Svechnikov, and a couple other really solid NHL players. I know, jaws dropped immediately. It's wild to see Mikael Backlund having this sort of production. I don't think at any point of his career we've ever seen him be this efficient. He's 12 points his last 10 games. He's top 3 on the team in shots on goal with 33 over that time span as well. His shooting percentage is lower than 10 right now, which in my opinion thinks there's definitely some room for positive regression for Mikael Backlund, because Calgary does shoot the puck a lot. They don't convert on a ton of these chances. Like, they just played Arizona the other night. They had, I think, like 50 plus shots. They did end up winning 6-3, but still, like, the volume's there, and I think that this bubble is going to burst for this team, and Backlund could be one of the biggest beneficiaries from that. One really positive thing, too, looking for Backlund, Calgary boasts the 5th easiest schedule for the remaining of the NHL season. The Pacific is pretty brutal right now, especially defensively and goaltending-wise, and they get a good chunk of those really shit teams in March and at the end of February as well. So I think having that is definitely advantageous for Mikael Backlund as well, trying to trade for him, because maybe a lot of people might not be looking into that. He plays on the first power play as well. First penalty kill. He averages 19 to 20 minutes over his last 10 games as well. Definitely a guy I'd look to grab for the rest of the season. It's really hard to have reasons not to want Mikael Backlund on your team at this point. All right, so the other guy we're going to be selling high on right now is Nick Schmaltz on the Arizona Coyotes. So this is probably someone a lot of you guys have picked up either recently. I think he was actually in one of the must-add videos maybe about a month ago. But his ownership has really picked up over the last month or so. It's around 40% now in Yahoo leagues. And I don't blame owners because he's been really solid, especially for this Arizona team who's looked pretty solid after the All-Star break. He has 8 goals in his last 10 games and 13 points, which is the same amount of points as Brady Tkachuk over that time span. And over the last 30 days, he's the 20th ranked fantasy hockey skater. I know it's pretty wild, but now we sell him. And this is the true test. Is it possible to sell high on an Arizona Coyote in fantasy hockey? I think it's doable because you have some decent ammunition for Nick Schmaltz at this point. He's only played 41 games too. He has 15 goals and 21 assists. And one of the biggest reasons that maybe you don't tell the person that you're trying to trade Nick Schmaltz to, but I talked about Larkin's shooting percentage is really high over the last 10 games at 21%. Schmaltz is on another level, 30% over his last 10 games, which is absolutely insane, like super high. And we've seen this Arizona Coyotes team, whenever they're having success, it's because their shooting percentage is weirdly high. I don't think, I want to say it's more because of luck. There's nothing really telling to say that because there's not a ton of super high skilled players on this Arizona Coyotes team, and they don't create a ton of scoring chances. So they're scoring on a really low volume number of shots. But I think we're going to see this whole team regress here as the season starts to wind down, and I think Schmaltz will unfortunately be one of the reasons for it. This team will also look a lot different after the trade deadline. I've heard Gostisbehere could be on the move. Chychrun's most definitely on the move at this point with him being out for the last couple games or so. I've heard Schmaltz names in rumors as well, but still, I'd still sell high on him at this point. His production has just been way too high, and I don't think whether he goes to a team that's contending in the playoffs, I don't think we'll see him with 8 goals in 10 games and 13 points at any other point of the season. Okay, so another guy we're buying low on, another guy that maybe some of you guys can even add, and that's Mikael Eyssimont. I know you're probably like, why the fuck is Ryan trying to tell me to buy low on Mikael Eyssimont when I could probably pick him up? Well, this is for all the people in the comments who say, yeah, I can't trade for him, or he's already been picked up, thanks a lot. There's absolutely no reason why you can't go out and get Mikael Eyssimont in any league that you're in, whether you're trading for him or picking up, because he's really still not known very well, especially even on this Sharks team. They picked him up off waivers, I believe, from Winnipeg a couple months ago, but now he's really starting to come in his own on this team. He's definitely been a bright spot for the Sharks team. Over the last 30 days, he has more fantasy points scored than Drake Batherson, Mikko Rantanen, Matt Boldy, and Trevor Zegras. He's also now playing on the elevated first line, I would say, with Logan Couture and Alexander Barabanov. With Timo Meier sidelined right now because he's probably going to get moved, and then also Thomas Hertl's a little banged up. This is definitely the line that's creating the most offense, and I think Eyssimont is one of the reasons for it. Over his last 10 games played, he's 9th in the NHL in expected goals for, which is really high for a guy who's honestly not playing a ton of minutes at this point. His expected goals for rate is 5.25, and on 36 shots over that span, he has just 3 goals and 5 points. His shooting percentage, very low, however, at just 8, but that can easily be elevated. I think one thing is good to note, he's been a productive fantasy hockey player over the last 10 games, over the last month, and he hasn't even reached, I would say, his full potential on the Sharks team either. The Sharks have the 10th easiest remaining schedule too, and are just always a part of high-scoring games. At this point, they kind of have to. Their goaltending has been really bad this year. And they're definitely one of the leaders in the league in goals for and goals against on a per-game basis. So I think Eyssimont will definitely be a sneaky ad for the rest of the season and add a ton of value as you get into the playoffs. All right, so the last guy we're going to be buying low on is Joe Pavelski on the Dallas Stars. Joe Pavelski, you can't forget, he still plays on one of the best lines in the league, and that's one of the main reasons why I think he's a great buy low at this spot. Last year, this was one of the best offensive lines in the NHL, and this year, they've been near the top of the pack, but I think they'll start to play much better as the season kind of winds down here. One of the biggest reasons being the Dallas Stars have the easiest remaining schedule in the NHL. And instead of trying to go get Rupe Hintz or Jason Robertson, which are maybe a little bit more unrealistic, I think you can go get Joe Pavelski, who's maybe the third name on that line at this point of his career. He only has 5 points over his last 10 games, but on the season, in 57 games played, he does have 14 goals and 36 assists. So 50 points on the season is very solid. Shooting volume is pretty solid as well. He is still the 50th ranked fantasy hockey player at this point, which is why, in my opinion, you can buy low on him because with confidence that he can be a top 50 fantasy hockey player, despite the fact that he has just 5 points over his last 10 games. He still plays on the first power play unit and just sits in front of the net. He's a wizard with his stick. He can tip the puck from pretty much anywhere. So looking at guys that I'd probably trade or try to get Joe Pavelski for right now, I'd trade away Jake Gensel for Pavelski. I know, I really would. He's got the much easier schedule. I think he has the better line, more productive line, and Gensel's been super inconsistent this year along with the Penguins. Maybe Jeff Skinner, if you can try to swindle someone, if you can, he plays on a really offensive line as well with Tuck and Tage Thompson, so that could be someone you can look at trading for Joe Pavelski, but I'd really try to get Pavelski for the rest of the season because as the playoffs come in, they play these shitty teams in the Pacific. I think you could see these big point nights from Joe Pavelski. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this week's buy low, sell high to win your fantasy hockey playoffs. Let me know if there's any other guys that you're looking at to buy low. If you have any trade questions, I'm here to help. So I'll see you guys in the next video.